Welcome back to the lesson. In our previous video, we've successfully discussed about logical operators in Python, and in this video we're going to be discussing about identity operators. Identity operators are used to compare objects, not if they are equal, but if they are actually the same object with the same memory location. There are basically two types of identity operators in Python, which are the is operator and the is not operator. The is operator right here returns true if both variables are the same object, and the is not operator over here returns true if both variables are not the same. They are basically unlike our comparison operators that we have discussed in our previous video that are actually used to compare between two values. Let's now go ahead and start citing an example of our identity operators. Now let's come down here. Okay, let's go ahead and create a variable, say x, which is equals to, let me create a list. I know we haven't discussed about list yet, but let's just use list to cite this example. And I promise you we'll be discussing specifically about list soon enough. So let's go ahead and now define our list elements. Let's say apple, and we have banana. Alright, now let's go ahead and copy this line of code. Copy. Let's come down below here, define another variable called y with the same content. Okay, and let's go ahead and create one more variable called z, which should be equals to, let's say, x. Copy this, paste it right here. Alright, so friend, as you can see, I went ahead to create three different variables, x, y, and z. And as you can see, both x and y are sharing the same content. Now, using the comparison operators as we have learned in our previous video, these two variables x and y are exactly the same. Let's actually go ahead and compare that, the x and y. Let's say print x equals to y. Now this condition is true because obviously x is of course equals to y because they are sharing the same content. Now if we go ahead and run our program, we'll be getting true because x is of course equals to y. So this is comparison operators. They are basically used to compare between two values. But the case is different with the identity operators. As you can see, if we went ahead to use the is, let's actually go ahead and use the is. Let's say x is y. So as you can see over here, the is identity operator is going to return true if both variables are the same. So in this case, we're not checking the value, but checking if they are actually the same variable, meaning they're sharing the same memory location. You know, in programming, every variable or every object has a memory address. So the is identity operator is going to check if they are of the same memory address, if they are exactly the same object. So now let's go ahead and run our program to see whether x is the same object as y. So let's go ahead and do that. Now run. As you can see, we get false, meaning x is not y. They are not the same object, even though they are sharing the same content, but they are totally different object. So how can we verify that? Well, we can actually do that using one of the default function in Python called id to check the memory address of each of these variables. Now let's go ahead and do that. Let's come over here, and now let's go ahead and comment this line of code first. Now let's go ahead and call the id function like so and pass our variable like so. Alright, and we're going to go ahead and print this id. Let's go ahead and cut this. Let's say print and paste it right inside here. And we're going to go ahead and do the same thing for the y variable over here. So let's go ahead and copy this line of code. Copy, come down below here, paste it, and we're going to go ahead and call our y variable instead, y. Now let's go ahead and run our program, and we shall be having the memory address of both of our x and y. Let me actually go ahead and label it. Let me come over here and say x like so, and let me copy this line of code, paste it right here, and say y for this one over here. And now let's go ahead and run our program. As you can see, the memory address for x is this, and the memory address for y is this. So as you can see, they are totally different memory address, even though they look almost identical starting from here to this point, I believe. But if you take a look at the last 4 digits of the two memory addresses, you're going to find that they are totally different memory address. So now we verify that this object are totally different because they are not sharing the same memory address, and that is exactly what the is identity operator is looking for. Is checking the memory address to see if they are sharing the same memory address, and if they are sharing the same memory address, that means they are exactly the same object, which they are not in this case. So this is the reason why when we print X is Y, we get false. So I hope you now understand the concept of the identity operators. Now let's actually go ahead and uncomment this. And now let's go ahead and rerun our program. As you can see, this is why we are getting false, because they are totally different objects. Alright, now let's go ahead and comment this line of code. We're not going to be needing them for now. And let's go back here. And now let's go ahead and check the identity of X and Z to see if they are exactly the same object sharing the same memory address. So let's go ahead and now say X is Z. Now let's come over here and say Z. And now let's go ahead and run our program to see. Okay, it says true, meaning X is Z. X is the same object as Z. As you can see, the value of Z is Rx. Alright, now let's go ahead and verify that as well. Let's go ahead and uncomment this line of code. Okay, for X, and now we're going to go ahead and uncomment this. And then instead of Y here, we're going to change it to Z. And we're going to change the ID here to Z as well. So now when we run this program, we're expecting to see exact same memory address because it says true, meaning that they are exactly the same object. So let's go ahead and run the program. Now run. Alright, as you can see, X is of course exactly the same object with Z because the memory address is exactly the same. As you can see, they are sharing exact same memory address. That's the reason why we are getting true over here, because the memory address is exactly the same. They are exactly the same object. Alright, so friend, that's it about the is identity operator right here. Let's go ahead and now move to is not. The is not identity operator is going to check if they are not the same. So let's go ahead and now give it a try. Now let's go ahead and comment this line of code. Since we know the concept, we understand the idea behind the identity operators. Now let's go ahead and come down here, and instead of is, let's go ahead and say is not. Okay, and now let's go ahead and start comparing between X and Y first. So in this case, X is not Y, which is true because, of course, X is not the same object as Y, as we have seen in our previous example. We have verified that as well. So now let's go ahead and run our program, and we shall be having true. As you can see, true. We got true because X is not the same object as Y. And now we're going to go ahead and compare between X and Z. Alright, let's go ahead and say X is not Z, like so, which is false because, of course, X is the same object as Z, alright? And here we are saying is not. So this argument is false because X is, of course, Z. So let's go ahead and run our program to see. Yes, as you can see, false because X is, of course, the same object as Z. So friend, that will be it for this video. I hope the concept of identity operators in Python is clear to you and that you understood everything we discussed in this video. And in our next video, we shall be discussing about membership operators. So hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one.